We use lists everywhere, most of the time to create to-do lists, wish lists, and more. But in web, we use lists even more. For example, to create menu bars, drop downs, and sidebars. Let's look at a live example. Let's open a new tab, and here we're gonna go to primeinspire.com. If you check out this website, actually if you check out any website, most of the websites have navigation bars which use lists. You can check that by going to inspect elements. So if I click on inspect, and here you can see that we have lists. It's unordered list, and then we have lists inside that. There are three types of lists: unordered list, ordered list, and definition lists. Unordered list is the one which is used more. Let's look at an example. In our code editor, we're going to create a new file. I'm going to call this as 04lists.html. I'm going to close the previous one, and let's create a list now. For this example, I'm going to use 5 different movie names. So that's going to be Star Wars, the 10 Commandments, Avengers, Endgame, Titanic, and Avatar. Let's save that. Right now, these movie names are just plain text. If you want them to be in a list, we will have to use the li tag. The li here stands for list item. Let's go ahead and add these li tags. So here, I'm just going to click over here, hold Alt, and do the multi-line selection. Then add in the li tag. Now it automatically added the closing tag. So I'm going to select the closing tag, press Ctrl X, that's going to cut that. I'm going to click outside of this list now and paste it. Let's save that. Now let's see how that looks in the browser. I'm going to right click, copy path, and now let's go to our browser, and I'm going to close this one, and I paste it over here and hit enter. You can see that we have bullets added to each line. This now specifies that every line here is a list item. Now we can tell the browser which type of list this is. First, we will create an unordered list. To do that, let's go to our code. Let's add an UL tag and a closing UL tag at the beginning and the end of the list. So for this, I'm just going to hit enter here and open a UL tag. Then I'm going to take this closing UL tag and paste it at the bottom. Let's save that. Now if you check your browser and hit refresh, you can see that we have some extra spacing. Our unordered list is now ready. Let's get back to our code. Here the li tags are nested inside the ul tag. We know that, but how do you represent it? Visually, we need to make the li tags look like they are inside the ul tag. To do that, we need to add a space or a tab before each list item. Let's go ahead and do that. So for this, I'm just going to select all of these items, and in your keyboard, just hit on the tab key. That's going to add an extra space. Let's save that file. You can use tabs or you can use spaces. Either way, this will not break your HTML. That's because blank spaces are ignored in HTML. Now that we have added the extra tab for all the list items, you can see that on the ul tag, we have a small arrow. Through this, we can collapse the ul tag. This way, we can make the HTML look more minimalistic and cleaner. Okay, so why did we use the ul tag? Now, we use the ul tag to convey meaning. This means any of these movies can be rearranged and jumbled, but they will still be list of items. In this case, list of movies. That's why we call it as unordered list, because the list is not in an orderly fashion. Now, what if we want an ordered list? This is where we can use the OL tag or ordered list tag. The OL tag conveys order to the items. For example, let's write a step-by-step guide to open the source code of a web page. For this, we're going to create a new line, and here I'm going to type in OL, and inside this we're going to type in ELI, and the first step would be to open the web page, and the next step would be to right click on the web page, and the third step would be to select view source. Let's save that. And now let's get to the browser. You can see that instead of bullets, now we have numbers. If you compare them side by side, you can see the only difference we have is the wrapping element. For the unordered list, we use the UL tag, and for the ordered list, we use the OL tag. By doing this, we get bullets for unordered list and numbers for ordered list. You can also use CSS to style these lists as you want. For example, let's go to a website. I'm going to open primeinspire.com, and here in the menu bar, you can see that we have a list of items. If I right click and if I click on inspect elements, you can see that these are actually unordered list. This menu bar is styled with CSS to look like a menu. Just like other elements, even lists can be nested. For example, let's get back to our code editor. Here we have a step-by-step guide to open the source code of a website. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in 3 browsers, and we're going to add these step-by-step instructions to those browsers. So basically these instructions will be nested inside each browser. So to do that, what we're going to do is here, I'm going to add in a ELI tag. I'm going to call this as Google Chrome. And inside this, we want these list items. So let's nest them. Just copy that and paste it. Next, we're just going to add another list. I'm going to call this as Firefox. And inside that, we're going to paste that. Let's create another list item. I'm going to call this as other browsers. And inside this, we're just going to move all of these items. Okay, so let's save this and let's get back to the browser and let's see how that looks. Let's close this tab, and if I hit refresh, you can see it doesn't look like it's nested. It's all in just one big list. So in order to make them nest inside each other, we need to use the wrapping element, the UL tag and the OL tags. Let's get back to our code. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap an OL tag over here, and I'm going to cut this and paste it over here. And I'm going to move all of these items inside. Let's do the same thing here. I'm going to type in OL tag, and I'm going to cut this and wrap that inside this. Let's do the same thing for this one too. I'm going to say OL, and I'm going to cut this, paste it over here, and just move them inside. Now these are the step-by-step instructions. They are in an orderly fashion, so we don't have to modify these things. But what we have to modify is the browsers, because these browsers are interchangeable. We can use Firefox first or Chrome the next. So to do that, what we can do is we can change the OL tag to UL tag. Okay, so let's save that. Let's get to the browser and let's hit refresh. Now you can see we have Google Chrome, and inside that we have the list or ordered list, which gives the step-by-step instruction. Same thing goes for Firefox and other browsers. There is another type of list called definition list. Here the lists are based on a key value pair. For example, let's say we have a term and a definition of that term. This is where the definition list comes in. Let's see how that works. Let's get to our code, and right below this, we're going to create a new line, and I'm going to call this as HTML. And basically what I want is inside this HTML, I want a definition of that. So I'm going to say hypertext markup language. Okay, So one term can have different definitions. So I'm going to give another definition, call this as language for the browser. Okay, so let's add another one. I'm going to call this as CSS, and the definition of this one is cascading style sheets. Okay, so I can add another description for this. I'm going to call this as language of styling, actually language for styling HTML. Let's save that. Here, the HTML is actually the term. So we will wrap the HTML in the DT tag. So to do that, what we can do is we can say DT, and then we're going to put this closing tag after this. Next, we have the description or the definition of that term HTML. So we'll wrap this in the DD tag. So here, we're going to call this as DD, and we're going to cut this, and then we're going to paste it over here. Now we have another description, so I'm just going to copy the same thing and paste it over here. Okay, so let's move the closing tag on the other side. Let's save that. Now let's do the same thing for the CSS too. So here, this becomes the DT tag, and I'm going to take this one and put it on the other side, and this is the DD tag. So this is the description, definition, description, and we're going to take the closing tag and paste it after the line. Save that. Now the entire thing goes inside a DL tag, also known as the definition list. So let's take all of these items and we're going to wrap them inside the DL tag. And I'm going to take this DL tag and I'm going to paste it after this. Let's save this, and we're going to move this inside this. Let's see how that looks in the browser. Let's hit refresh. You can see we have HTML and the two definitions of that, and we have CSS, and then we have the two definitions of that. Let's analyze this a little bit. Let's get back to our code. If you see, the DT tag and the DD tags are sitting around each other. This is how the definition lists work. These are the three different kinds of lists in HTML: the unordered list, ordered list, and the definition lists.